Welcome to the Books and Letters podcast, offering humane reflections on literature, culture, and education in an age dominated by fleeting trends and digital noise. I'm Scott Postma, your host, and today I'm joined by Curtis Miller, who is a professional writer in LA. And Curtis, good to have you on the show today.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm excited.
Well, Curtis, can you just give our guests a little bit of background? Who are you? What do you do? And kind of set us up to talk about professional writing.
Yeah, will do. I love to write. Could talk about writing all day. I love books on writing. I'm a professional writer. I'm fortunate to call myself that, so I do it professionally. So basically, I'm a full-time writer for a company, a big nonprofit. It's PragerU. I write a lot for PragerU Kids, and so kids books, educational books, scripts for shows, for animated shows, sometimes live shows, voiceover, all that stuff. I'm also a freelance writer, so I've worked for branding agencies, writing content like blog articles, press releases, web content, the occasional ad, like that kind of thing for B2Bs, business to business companies. And I've also done some writing entertainment. I've ghostwritten, if it gets published, my name will be on it, but I've ghostwritten a kid's middle grade novel, like a detective novel based on the Dot Connor series. And of course, like anybody in LA, you mentioned I'm from LA, I have my own stuff. I'm a playwright, I have screenplays. I have the kids' book. I have my stuff that I'm trying to, put through and make the rounds. It's just ongoing. It's just a long, ongoing thing. And I Substack. While I'm bragging, I Substack Shelf of Crocodiles. I've done that for a couple of years, had some articles in different publications, City Journal, American Greatness, The Federalist, Blaze Media, writing about like theater and culture and entertainment because I have a drama background, done a lot of theater. But yeah, like I said, I'm fortunate to do it professionally, to have a full-time writing job. It's not the most common thing. And I was a teacher for about 8 years before this. I got my MFA at UC Andrews. That was kind of the link between teaching English and then writing professionally. The MFA kind of put wind in my sails and thought maybe I can do this and see where it goes. So there you go, in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. So this is one of the big questions that a lot of folks who really enjoy writing, who want to write, some want to write professional. And I've met a few people that just want to write and they want to keep their day job, but they just enjoy writing, as the process, which I think we can all appreciate and understand that. But we've also all heard the stories of the starving artist, and you're obviously beyond that stage as a professional writer. Did you have to go through the starving artist stage? Is that something that's more of a myth these days, or can you talk a little bit about what is it like? You gave some of your background, but what is it like to get there as a professional writer? What hoops did you jump through? What direction? What's the process, I guess? And I don't want to distill it down to, here's my 7 points that you're going to put on a Substack, that get there.
Sure.
But just talk about your own journey that way.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to do that. Starving artist. I didn't quite do that. I was just so spoiled and fortunate. So like I said, I did do the MFA program at UC Andrews College. And that was because I wanted to gather with some other Christians and write stuff, write novels. Like I'm a playwright. They didn't have playwriting. I took that up with Nate Wilson, but they did some stuff with that. That was cool. But yeah, I wanted to, kind of get at writing creatively and writing good works. Because if you read anything like a book or a play or you watch a movie, like there's a big absence of Christians written that stuff recently, kind of in the past couple hundred years. At least, we don't dominate. There's a lot of old, amazing stuff. But I wanted to go where that was happening, just if it was happening anywhere. And so I went to New St. Andrews and seeing people there do it professionally, namely Nate Wilson, well-known author, incredibly talented author, and Hollywood producer, like, Hell Ninjas, his Netflix show. And my kids love that book. So seeing guys like him, I think that put some wind in my sails to go into left field. And so while I did step back from my teaching job, I took a year off and wound up kind of stepping back full time to do that program. My wife was teaching at the same time. And so it kind of worked out. We didn't have kids yet. Didn't quite starve. I've eaten plenty of ramen, but I can't say I did that. But I also quit my day job, which in most cases you shouldn't do. I think there's even a book about it. And the book is like, gosh, I'm forgetting the title, but it's like how to make it as a writer. And the first sentence is like, don't quit your day job. Like that's what everyone says. Like it's good advice. You know, you have to work. I did to write my novel and my master's, and then I started freelancing. And so I kind of just as experiment, I started seeing like what kind of writing can I do with my MFA skills and get paid for? Like how can I make someone else look good? One thing Nate always said in the program was just, you know, the old proverb, a man good at his craft will stand before kings. I thought, okay, maybe I can test that. Like, you know, God's really good. He's generous. He's Jehovah Jireh. He provides work. And so, yeah, God provided some work for a branding agency. And I wrote for the clients of a branding agency called Resound. That got me some professional samples. Through that, I kind of found some of my own clients. One client, I think I was telling you about in Texas, a guy in finance, I wound up writing his kind of like blog newsletter that went out to just his network of, like 10,000 people. And I was like his name, kind of his voice for a couple of years. And he appreciated it. We really hit it off. And so I made some money doing that. That was kind of in the business world. And God opened a big door in that I started writing for PragerU Kids first as a freelancer, then full time. And I think I got the freelancing gig because I was open to freelancing gigs. I was in left field. Like I had that luxury of, we didn't need me having a full day job at that moment. My wife was teaching. I could freelance, and being in left field enabled me to do that, to get my writing in front of someone's eyes who liked it. An editor named Megan who did a great job. And and then it worked out that I could go full time, having had my foot in the door just through writing those books for them, and then those show scripts. So, and that's one thing I think you hear, like a lot of writers. I mean, if and when someone quits the day job, at one point they were in left field. Like there were some big risks they took. They were really, really good, really qualified, really ready, working hard, and just when a door opened, they went for it. And there's always a risk in that. So
it sounds like you leaned into actually working, in terms of, where can you get, I'm going to call them writing gigs, it's more than that, but where can you, apply your craft and get paid for it, even if it's doing some freelancing. And one thing opens doors for others because you're actually doing the work. And I don't know if this is the book you're thinking of. I think it was John Acuff wrote a book called Quitter.
That's it. That's the one. It's Quitter.
Is that the one? Okay, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I've always joked because some of the folks that I've talked to over the years in writing are a little bit more like Cousin Eddie on the National Lampoons, where it's like she's pregnant, getting ready to have a baby, his wife, and she's like, "Well, Eddie said I can quit my night job when the baby comes, or one of my night jobs when the baby comes," but he's holding out for a management position. And I feel like, sometimes people have this attitude of, I want to get there one day, but I'm holding out for, the big break, the big thing. But what I'm hearing you say is leaning into the work that is available and just working and applying your craft, which, I think this goes without saying. And I've read your writing and read quite a bit of your writing, and you're a really good writer.
Thank you.
And I think that, having skill is part of it, right? You can't be a terrible writer and hope to keep getting gigs. Can you talk a little bit? You talked about New St. Andrews, and I want to maybe come back to that. But you were an English teacher before that. Can you talk about what were the skills that you developed to become a good writer? I mean, did it come overnight? Were you just naturally endowed with this, or is this something that you had to work at?
I think it came gradually. And something I can't take credit for. I mean, I've always been a strong reader. Like I could read books and just enjoy them. And by read them, I mean like read the text. Like my wife enjoys audiobooks. Like just reading through the text is a little difficult for her. It's different for everybody, but I've always been a strong reader for one thing, and that helped. I think I've always had a writing knack. Oddly enough, now that you mentioned it, like being a teacher, one thing I would do for my classes is when I was teaching a skill, like identifying an independent clause or writing a compound sentence, I would have stuff on the whiteboard, or even like I would bring up my computer screen to the projector and I would write in front of them. And I would like, let's write this thesis, let's try this. And so they could see the process of like me trying something, deleting it, trying it again, kind of fine tuning what I'm going for and then writing. And so I wound up doing a fair amount of just kind of writing on the spot and kind of taking suggestions and should I try it like this? And then in my MFA program, like you asked about that, we had to do these in-class writing exercises, live writing, like Nate Wilson called it, where he said, all right, 500 words or a page, and you have a character doing this, and there's a parrot in the scene, and you want the reader to have this impression. Like, you give us all these really fun, wacky prompts, but you had to like make it come to life creatively. And so that was something. I've been able to do that, and I think I survived. I passed the program. I graduated. I think I'm okay. Um, you made it challenging. That just gave me confidence. And it's like, okay, even approaching something like business, because I don't have a business background. I don't have a background in like retail or law or anything, but like writing for that branding agency, and it's like an article for this law firm, or it's like a blog post, or it's like 10 good headlines. I think just doing all that writing on the spot and just learning to like try stuff, break stuff, and just come up with a lot of good stuff and like distill the best of it. That helped me see things as a creative exercise professionally. Like, okay, like, doesn't matter to me if like, it's not like this, press release for a law firm needs to be like my work of American letters, my poem. It's like, it's something for them. I can do whatever it takes to get them what they want. That's within my power. And so, yeah, let me just try this as a creative exercise. And based on the feedback, try it again and again. Because Nate would give us feedback. And in publishing, you get feedback. And teaching, of course, you're like always critiquing. You're trying to get the kids to like write their best and formulate their thoughts. And so putting your work out there, but editing, taking edits and making it the best. I think I'm just lucky in that, like, God gave me a bunch of different ways to practice that over teaching, the MFA, then writing for professional companies. And just being able to come up with something someone can want based on what they've asked for, and just make it like a layup, like, with the ball in the hoop. So
the two things that really emerge out of there, what you're just saying, is being a strong reader, not just listening to audiobooks, which I don't think there's, I have certain genres that I like to listen to on audiobook. Usually it's more disposable kind of content, but I want to really read, the meaty works, the classics and those things. But I'm hearing you say, become a good reader, that exercise, not just listening to books, but actually being a good reader. And then what I've heard called practicing in public, just practicing getting feedback, getting feedback. And I think that intimidates a lot of people to put something out there that's going to be critiqued. And I know I always have a lecture that I give my students when we do writing assignments, and I always tell them, you are not your paper, right? So critiquing your writing is not you personally being critiqued. And so you need to be able to separate those so that we're not just constantly offering platitudes, but giving real good feedback. So practicing in public and becoming a good reader, and gradually just working at it at the opportunities that come is, if I was to really distill down what you've said, what does it take to become a good writer?
Sure. And if I could share one more thing, this came to mind, a little anecdote someone gave me, just if anyone's listening who like wants to try professional writing, or, just trying something professionally, but going gig to gig. A guy of mine, kind of a mentor, we grew up going to the same church. He's one of the dads at the church. He's a cool guy. He's a surfer and an artist, and he was in advertising for a long time. And I think he did like, animation and graphics for like Disney. And so he's super well connected, but he told me, because I was doing this writing journey, and he sat me down and said, Curtis, when you're doing this, you're the guy that's going to write something I'm going to pay you for, like, take Dave Ramsey's advice. Like, he quoted Dave Ramsey, where it's like, you're getting out of debt, you got to be like a gazelle. So it's like, be like a gazelle running from the lion. Like, oh, you got this gig, smash it. Oh, you got this gig, smash it. And be the person, like do that so well, you get to be the person in someone's mind where it's like, oh, I need writing. Like, I need this one thing. I need a script, or I need copy for this. That guy has it. And you just do that for years. Like, it takes years of doing that, is what he said. And so, it was leaning in, but also aggressively, anything that came my way, just, doing it to my best and just getting that. So I get the next one and become the person someone goes to. And I think it's the same for graphic design, or maybe even if you're like tutoring or something, or like giving lectures, like just being the person someone will go to for that one specific thing. Like, to quote Jordan Peterson, I'm on fire. I need water. You got water. Like,
yes,
I'll come to you for water again. So.
No, that's great advice. That's really good advice. And being the person that people want to, that they're going to bring it to, because you have the answers. You're gonna pump it out. You're going to do the work. And so work. Yeah, it sounds like that's a lot a lot of the elbow grease is a lot of becoming successful as a writer. You mentioned New St. Andrews and going to the MFA program, and that's
Hmm.
really intriguing to me because I live about an hour from Moscow. I have a connection with Moscow from the CEO of a education company that's based in
Yeah.
Moscow, and you're down in LA. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? I've had several people on my Substack community ask about, where is a good liberal arts program? Where is college still okay? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of weird stuff happening in higher ed if somebody's
Yeah.
not aware. And there's a handful of schools. New St. Andrews, I think, is one of them. Um, Talk about that if you wouldn't mind. What led you there? What was that experience like, and how did that prepare you for where you're at now?
Yeah. I'd love to do that. I owe a lot to New St. Andrews, and to Nate in particular, because he started the program, like Nate Wilson, Andy Wilson. So I'm glad to do that. It's so interesting. It's so funny. Thinking about it now, and also knowing a little more just about Osco, Idaho, New St. Andrews, just over the years, I kind of went in like Mr. Magoo. I mean, I didn't know a whole lot about, like, Douglas Wilson. Um, I knew a little bit more about, like, his son Nate, and just Nate's books. In particular, I remember reading Notes from the Tilt-A-Whirl. I read that when I was a teacher at a Christian school, because someone, like, read from that during the devotions. We had these morning devotions, and someone read that, and just his prose, just reading that. Whoa, like, that was something very thoughtful, very hard hitting, very deft. And I bought that book and read it. Was like, wow, this guy's phenomenal. And so when I was searching for MFA programs, because I wanted to do an MFA program, like I'd done theater and playwriting in college and wanted to push my writing further, um, that was the Christian program that I found. That, just reading the mission statement and just reading a little bit about the college, maybe not knowing everything, but reading enough. These guys are really committed to the gospel,
Mhm.
really committed to the Christian faith, to excellence, to the classics. Again, I said I went to, like, Mr. Magoo. I couldn't have told you a whole lot about Reformed theology at that time. That's not my background. I'm Reformed adjacent now, but just getting the sense that, like, okay, this is a place where people stand behind excellence. And then seeing that fulfilled when I actually went in person, even to the way, like, undergraduates dress, like people dress and prepare and present themselves. I was genuinely impressed and challenged to up my game, like, a lot. I was going to say a little bit, but a lot. And so, um, it was a godsend. It was a really incredible opportunity. Also, as far as MFA programs go, like, one that I could afford. There's so many master's programs, at least in creative writing. There's so many that cost an arm and a leg, and, like, they'll take your money and be like, okay, here you go, like, come to this fancy retreat and pretend like you're the author. And I mean, you actually write a book. I'm sure they're good programs, but, like, it's not. You don't go into that. You don't spend all that money knowing, oh, I'm going to come out as a job at the end, like I'm going to be a doctor. It's not that thing. And so I didn't want to go in and spend a ton of money on this. If I'm being real, I really wanted to find a place that was a good fit for just where we were financially, and also as a Christian, also just the Christian faith and the Christian worldview. Yeah, my education was mostly secular. I went to public schools, public college, UC Riverside. Even taught as a public school. I taught as a Christian school too. But I really was interested in what would these guys have to say about creative writing, and where classical Christianity, that's not shy at all, enters into that. And given there's this dearth, there's this absence of Christian writers that are, in the literary world, in the drama world, like all the artistic worlds, we haven't been dominant or really at the table. And that's a different topic. Talk about that for a number of reasons. But, like, what are these guys saying? What are they doing? And so my curiosity was piqued, and then it really challenged me, and I learned a ton. And I think part of your question was, what role did that play in me getting to professional writing? Kind of how was that kind of a stepping stone, perhaps?
Yes.
It just put wind in my sails.
Good.
Seeing Nate just being a faithful Christian and a phenomenal author. With his books and, like, his show on Netflix, his kids show, and his nonfiction books. Seeing Pastor Wilson, his books, like talking to him and reading Evangelifish, and just seeing how he approaches, like, satire with this, just with a serious thoughtfulness. And there was so much that challenged me. That was phenomenal, and just the wind in my sails to try this. And like I didn't come out thinking, okay, I'm just going to sell a novel, like be a big name. I wasn't, ready to do that, but just approaching it as a craft. And like they always said, a man good at his craft will stand before kings. It's a proverb. Okay, these guys can do it. I can try too. Maybe they're the A levels. I can try to C level or D level, maybe work my way up, maybe. And so I think it was God's grace that was the MFA program that was there. Oh, and the last thing, this is a lot of things, sorry, but New St. Andrews stayed open through COVID, stayed open through the pandemic, continued their in-person conferences. That was also like a lifeline, because with me being in California and guys from other states too, like there really was just a community and a camaraderie of just like the world's gone crazy and we are here. We're kind of on some solid ground. And so that was a godsend too. And so, yeah, so I hope that speaks to it. This is kind of just a short version, but if I hadn't gone there, I probably wouldn't have tried professional writing and got to where I am today. And, the journey continues for me. It's ongoing.
I appreciate that. And, I don't want to, my goal isn't to turn this podcast into a New St. Andrews advertisement, but the things that you talked about was part of what led us, sort of to Moscow in the education realm. But, real serious Christians doing actual good work, because in my experience, Christians always had this like sort of B game. They always came along with the kind of, cheesy knockoff of whatever was going on. But here were some people actually doing real world influential work in education, in writing, and they were serious about their Christianity. So it wasn't, you weren't watching a B movie, a spaghetti western, so to speak. It was you're actually in the real thing. So I appreciate hearing that. Now, we've known each other for a couple of years. I think we had moved out of Moscow probably about the time you had moved there. So we didn't get. Well,
and a quick thing, I went for the residencies. They were only 1 week. Okay. There was 3 of them a year, and so I never moved to Moscow. I've just gone a number of times.
Okay, so I'd say we missed each other in person, but then we connected online and have had a few different conversations. But so one of the things I know that you and your wife recently had another baby, so you've got 2 children now, and you're a writer in LA, a Christian, and a dad.
Yes.
So that's some heavy things to plates to spin. Can you talk a little bit about that? What is it like being a husband, dad, a Christian father, and a professional writer? Is that something that's hard for people to do? Does it come natural for you? What's your advice to other dads who are writers?
Well, I hope it's doable. I'm certainly trying to do it. And the LA thing, I kind of work for, PragerU. They have, headquarters here around the country too. But that's one thing being down here that worked out, me working for them full time, that I was down here in the area. And we moved down for family, actually. Like my family is from here. My parents are from here. It was kind of on my wife's heart to really do that. And so God opened a door for that, then opened a door for the professional writing in person. And if I didn't mention it, I was a freelancer for PragerU. I was one of the freelance writers for the better part of a year before I came in person full time. So I had a relationship. As far as it being in LA, we're very blessed in that there actually are a lot of Christians down here. Like professionally, I don't think I've gotten any kind of like flack or anything for being a Christian, at least so far. So I don't think I have the typical Daniel and Babylon Christian off in Hollywood experience. Like that's a real thing. I've talked to people who've done that, professionals, like where I work. There's a lot of Christians. Like the faith is definitely encouraged and expressions of it encouraged. We all gathered and prayed on the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Like we all came out and prayed in Jesus' name. We prayed for him when the news first broke, and we didn't know for sure if he was going to survive or not. Like many people came out and prayed in Jesus' name. I'm very blessed. There's not many workplaces you can do that. And so, and that's a blessing. We have a strong church community, of course. We go to a little Reformed church here in Torrance. And LA's Babylon at the same time. That is still a thing. And again, I can't speak to working in secular Hollywood per se, but I'm a playwright. I'm part of a playwriting group where I'm the one Christian. I definitely kind of went through some of that, like in high school and college, just being kind of one of a few Christians, just doing professional theater and doing the playwriting class, the screenwriting track. It's a thing where it's not always not always a warm welcome, but it's strange now because even here, even in LA, Christianity is having a moment culturally. Something I thought I'd never see happen. Like it's almost like we're cool, and I don't know what to make of it. I think New St. Andrews, and that's, you guys have played a big role in that, just kind of standing confidently. But there is this moment in the culture, and I don't know. And I'm also, still being a playwright, and a kid's novelist, and pitching ideas. I go to conferences and I pitch stuff to editors. I'm not shy about my faith. It's there. It's not like on the tip of my tongue in every single sentence and everything. I have stuff that is kind of more less gospel focused and some that's more, but so far, it hasn't really been frowned upon. One thing I will say, because Nate Wilson, his podcast, Stories for Soul Food, he had one comment about some people want to be a Daniel in Babylon, or they want to be a Joseph. Like they really want to be faithful to God, but be in that one place. Are they ready to? They think they're ready. And he said, yes, you can totally do that. But the other side of that is in that story, Daniel's thrown into the lion's den and Joseph was in prison. So if that's the story you're signing up for, be aware of all that story entails, possibly. It's a real thing to think about. But I've been very blessed so far. Like God's really just opened some doors and people have been very receptive.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So kind of preparing to wind down just a little bit, I've got a couple more questions I wonder if you'd talk about. So if you were, coaching or mentoring a handful of young writers or aspiring writers, what are a few tips that you would give them? What kind of, coaching would you give them? If you had 1 minute with them, what would you say to them? How would you encourage them? What's a few things that they could do to pursue something that you're doing as a professional writer?
Yeah. Good question. For someone starting out, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is like writing is rewriting.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old saying. It's there's just, I think it takes a willingness to put your ideas out there, kind of like you were saying, put your stuff out there, do it somewhat publicly, even if that's just a room full of people or a couple other writers, and then look at it critically. Like, how am I going to rewrite this? This was, ideation 1. This is ideation 2. This is idea 3. It could be this. Let's bat it around. There's a piñata analogy that's helped me professionally and, in my work for different clients. Often when you write professionally and you're writing someone's, project, it's a piñata. You have to know that. And by piñata, I mean something that you're going to deliver in the color and size and with the strings and doodads that they want. And so it's done to specification, but it's meant to be broken. It's meant to be beat with the bat so that the candy comes out. And they're going to do the beating because everyone wants to be a writer. Everyone has their ideas. And so there's a lot of, there's a big boost to like, oh, I've written this. It's my thing. I've done it. That's a huge thing. And Hollywood is full of stories about that. So in the Wizard Darren, don't just, don't be precious. Writing is rewriting. But I'd also say like, and again, I am kind of, echoing New St. Andrews here, just a lot of what they talked about. But if you look at the Bible, if you really read, it's fascinating. God chose to, reveal himself to us and also create the world, I might add, like through stories, through words, through writing, making things incarnate through words. And then over time through stories, through the Old Testament, the New Testament, of course, through hyperlinked stories. And so there's something good about creation. There's something just grounded and true. It's how God communicates to us. And so I can't not creating, even if it's just finger painting, even if it's like I want to write a really good journal entry my family will enjoy, and I want to do it well so people will read it, and it's not fancy. I'm not showing off. Like, here's our family party. I'm thinking of a grandfather of mine who every year Christmas party would write like a little essay report on here's where the party was, here's the food we had. This was enjoyed by all. There were these presents. Like he wrote that and chronicled it. Like that was his passion, and he did it well. And it's kind of this artifact where we kind of wrote a little history. And so there's always something to be said for writing your idea, actually doing it, taking it all the way, and then you've done it. It doesn't always have to be murder your darlings. And that's part of it professionally, but there's something good for the creating and there's something good for the recreating which can hurt, but is how it gets to the finish line. And I would just say try both. And if you can stomach both, and if you think you could do both professionally and want to get paid for it, I mean, explore it, try it. And then it gets into like being the gazelle. Like when you get that chance, take it, take the next one, take it, don't hesitate, and just do it well. I don't know for sure, but I'm sensing even at the highest levels, like published authors or filmmakers, like whenever someone gets a green light, you take it. And it's one of those, like, don't hesitate. Like it's the norm is not getting that green light. Like it's normal to be unemployed. It's normal to not have that work to do that's paid. So when it happens, when it's there, you go and you do it and you make the film or you write the story in the novel. When I was at a conference recently, and one agent in kind of the Christian publishing world said, write a bunch of proposals and hold them out like fishing poles. When you get a nibble, write that manuscript. It's okay to have a bunch out. I mean, with publishers. And so, yeah, when you get that chance, go for it. So again, a lot of jumbled thoughts, but I'm in the thick of it. This is kind of what I see. And I hope that can encourage someone. I certainly was encouraged by the New St. Andrews folks. I wrote for a branding agency, and even professionally, I had some people that really encouraged me in my work. They said that this is great, this is phenomenal, you have a gift here, like keep coming, give me more. So if you have someone, if you hire a writer, they do a good job, tell them. Like that goes a long way.
I really appreciate all of those things that you mentioned. And as you were talking, this image came to my mind of this movie from years ago. It's Chevy Chase. It's called, I just drew a blank, Funny Farm, where he's a journalist. If you remember this film, he's a journalist, and they give him a contract to write, a story or write a piece, a book or something. And he buys his house out on the farm, and he just, basically squanders his time. Meanwhile, his wife, in between taking care of all the things, she's just, she's taking little opportunities to write, and she becomes published, and he's still trying to think about what he's going to write, But it just sort of reminded me that it's not exactly the same thing, but it sounds like there are some people who are in love with the idea of being a writer or the idea of having written, but real writing just means you got to stay busy, you got to stay at work, you've got to practice, know when to put on your creative hat and when to put on your critic hat. And just keep at it. So I think that's fabulous advice. Well, as we wrap up, can you give us first off, what are you reading right now? What is something that you've read recently that resonated with you, and what would you recommend to our audience that you feel like would be a good place to start reading? It doesn't have to be on writing, just on anything.
Sure, talk about reading all day. I love to read. If I could selfishly plug, I occasionally, now it's occasionally, it was a lot more frequent. I write about books and ideas on a Substack, Shelf of Crocodiles, and sometimes I go in depth on books I've read and really enjoyed. Right now, I'm reading The Road to Wigan Pier by George Orwell, and I'm part of a group of 4 friends, some in Northern California, some here in Southern California. Started when I was in Northern California, now I'm down here, but twice a year we get together in person, once in Northern California, once down here. And in the interim, we've read a book or a couple books. And this book is the last on the list of books we've read. And so I've read a lot of Orwell. I don't know if I think of other Orwell books I'd recommend. This one is when he's at his most socialist, which I disagree with. I'm not a socialist, but he's right there in the movement and he's really pushing for it. But he's like, okay, it's this stage of when he later changed his mind. So that's interesting. One book... Along with that, I'll just say this. Another one on my shelf I haven't got to yet, I've read some of, that I want to read, is Edmund Wilson. He's a famous American literary critic. And the book's called To the Finland Station. And it's kind of intellectual history, like the history of ideas. It basically goes from the French Revolution to Lenin's arrival. I believe it's St. Petersburg, because he was taken there, but like Germany expelled him and said, here, Russia, you take him. And he arrived at St. Petersburg at the Finland Station, and being there was able to agitate, and the Russian Revolution takes off. And so it's a history of the ideas as they developed, of how like people looked at history and the world around them and came up with the Communist Revolution, starting from the French Revolution. So it's that history of ideas. I read the first couple of chapters and it's phenomenal. It's very eloquently done. And I want to dig in and do more of that. Christian reading. Oh, the very last thing. I'm writing a play right now. I've actually got it here. Just proof that I'm in LA and I have everyone has their passion project. I've got a play, and the play loosely spins off of the famous parable of the prodigal son in the Gospel of Luke. It's not a direct retelling, but it's a drama, like a tragic drama that spins off and just runs with some of those character archetypes. So I'm reading John MacArthur's book. I believe it's The Prodigal Son, and it's a whole book on that parable. And just really, I'm reminded as I read that, like that's one example. MacArthur's a skilled writer. Doesn't quite have the flavor of like an Edmund Wilson or an H.L. Mencken, just very kind of plain, but also very good. Like reading that, it gives me thoughts for my play, but also I'm reading something that's kind of like wholesome, and just really showing me layer after layer on this parable. It's very well known, but just how much there is to it, how much Jesus packed into it, who he'd kind of aimed it at, some of the context of the time, and that's really eye-opening. And so I'm really enjoying that. The Prodigal Son by John MacArthur. So.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for those. You mentioned Shelf of Crocodiles a couple times. You're on Substack. Is that the URL? We're going to put that in the show notes, but can you tell folks where they can read your writing, your public writing?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some links on there. I also have a professional website with samples of my published writing, but I've been in a couple magazines, City Journal, I reviewed Better Call Saul, The Federalist, and they can get there from the Shelf of Crocodiles.
Okay.
And if I could do one last shameless plug, this is just something else, but I'm actually teaching a class on playwriting at the Vision Christian Writers Conference, which is coming up in Santa Cruz. That's going to be this coming end of March. So for 1 weekend, I'll be adjunct faculty at the Vision Christian Writers Conference. You can look it up in Santa Cruz.
We'll put the link. People can still register for it.
Yeah, they still can. Yeah, it's a great conference. You stay for a couple of days, and it's in the Redwoods, and it's a little corner of the Christian publishing world where there's agents, editors. I've met, and I actually sold a story to Focus on the Family's Clubhouse magazine there because I met the editor, and so it's a place to make those connections. That's something else we talk a lot more about. Like there's writing, but there's also making connections, and as I say, your network is your net worth, and so. Getting writing published and paid for writing, you have to know people that want it, and you have to meet people and just get to know a lot of people and be the person that's doing that. So
fabulous. Well, we'll have all of those links in the show notes when this goes live. Curtis, thank you so much for giving me some of your time today and talking to us here on Books and Letters and talking about all things writing. Yeah,
I'm glad to do it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great evening. Thank you, folks, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Books and Letters podcast.